Welcome to our lovely future humans, and to those who are curious on why self-care. Why is it cool? Well, number one, do you have self-love? Because it's only if you got self-love. What's love got to do with it? Everything. So science and spirituality, they prove it works. Self-care, like they prove that going to therapy works. For those who have the cracks, they got to put gold in it, and some don't have the cracks, and we get to say, let me help you put some more gold as you walk a walk and talk a talk. Like for me, Jesus taught me. So I'm a 5D mystic, in case you don't know, and I bring spiritual and sciences together and human elements because all subject matters are really fun. In fact, today we talked about words, stories, and teachings. They will change and hold no power over those of us who are self-empowered with our mind and brain. That's an integrated brain body. And so that body is navigating its ventral vagal state. And so there's emotional, mental intelligence development for those who know self-care is cool. Why is it cool? Because it creates also a heart. So that heart-brain coherence, right? Okay, so this lovely man, I got to hear a little bit from him today, Stephen Kotler. And he shares, if you're interested in your capacity to be in the flow state, I'm going to use my words, you will know that you want something reliable, right? So if you want to be at your best, and something repeatable. And that's what I integrate the neuroscience, which involves neurobiology, psychology, and more, and all of that lovely attachment trauma education that I have. So our lovely IHP community, again, if you're new, we like to do mental, emotional intelligence development through spiritual and personal growth. So practices that involve mindful mindset. And that's why we are going to have some new ways the content is going to roll out, FYI, because I want to create some more paid content and some playlists that are going to be for free, so you can have them and use them, and also get familiar with my exercises and readings, because that's something that people will want to understand if you resonate with it or not. So in the meantime, as he points out, when you find that explanations usually will only involve the psychology or philosophy, they will use metaphors, or he compares them to metaphors. And I will say one more thing: they allow people to use these ancient words, stories, and teachings and not notice that they haven't done any growth. Okay, so that's another part that I'm going to talk about in a minute as I finish. But as he points out, if you want repeatable, measurable results, science can help you with that. And when you own your sense of self, like Dr. Daniel Siegel presented to me in my courses with him, and like I know on my own body, with the personality PDP, personality pathways development. I always forget. Let me see if I have my notes. And he does a better job at talking about it. Obviously, I have a book, and I do believe that by the end of reading it, I'll be able to integrate it. We also get to know about adult attachment interview, those of us who are trauma educated and certified. And again, when you're aware, you know self-care, because you will consistently bring not only the open-ended inquiry, so no goals, when the implicit memory, so sensations come up, emotions, affects, behaviors, meanings. You also know how to spot your triggers, and then you also know how to not use the left to create a story, because again, you're wanting to actually process the charge. So how it increases effectiveness, the self-care, that is cool. It's because when your body is in connection, so heart to heart, we are using the bright sides of neuroplasticity, so you create integration, and you own the sense itself, so you're not changing, you're expanding the personality patterns. So patterns of developmental pathways, they have 9 domains, and like when I took the test, it's to a T who I am. So with those 3 subcortical main areas, fear, sadness, and anger, and as we master them, we continuously, in fact, gain self-knowledge. We work more and more on our lovely capacity to continue our own purpose. And if you are a mystic, you also have that lovely soul purpose. And we move personality from being, as Dr. Daniel, I'm quoting him now, being a prison of chaos and rigidity to a playground of connection and possibility. And so we don't carry a self-righteous baton, we carry a connecting baton. And I can tell you, it's with great honor that we respect and follow Jesus' footsteps. And the part about when people like to use him because he got all angry in a square or whatnot, I'm thinking, are you copying him? You justifying your attitude? I mean, because he did it once, he taught, forgive, turn the other cheek. Blessed are those who believe without seeing. No vengeance. There's one of the parts where there's a person who takes vengeance and he forgives him. So being able to forgive is that which the person who is a body that's connected can do, because we process when we get sad. So our hearts stay open even when we're not bonding, because we'll get sad, but it doesn't break. Okay, so your embodied brain is divine masculine here, divine feminine, and so the empowered feminine. How science and spirituality prove it works. Spirituality has already, through again Jesus and Buddha. I make fun of Buddha, but not because I make fun of him. It's because he sat under a tree. But all of the spiritual enlightened ones will know that a person can become their best self. And so that flow state, science proves it through neuroscience, neurobiology, mental health. And so that being said, when you meet people who don't want to achieve the highest level of spirituality or their highest self, which is to be their self, it's because they don't know their authentic self yet. And they don't believe that trauma is stuck energy and that it's coming forth to be released. So they don't believe that the trauma charges. They think that anger is meant to be expressed with their modulated embodiment. And so they don't want equanimity. They don't want to learn discernment. They don't want to learn love, because their body is only going to be in a state of oxytocin gene hormone love when they create resilience in restorative embodiment. That means you're emotionally and mentally intelligent and developing that and continuing to do. So that's what our IHP community is all about, which is why we are like-hearted, because we might be of complete opposing political groups, but we will want to intellectually come together and maybe chit-chat about it. Or we can do that. I can have a conversation with any person, and doesn't matter how they're coming at it, because when you're securely attached and non-traumatized, you're confident. So someone can look away, but it won't erode your confidence, because my confidence isn't based on you. In fact, let me share with you one of Sadhguru's wisdoms: to love, to believe, to respect yourself. He says you need two or more. But he says the world talks about, you needing to respect yourself. But he says, don't you think that's a bit crazy? He doesn't know the sciences stuff. I do. So you want to be able to respect you and another. But he's trying to present respect is between two people. And therefore you want to use it with another person. And if someone is looking upward or downward, then that's a place of learning. And in fact, you learn how to come, all of us, down to the floor and know that we are different bodies with different experiences. And so when you're an open-ended inquiry within your brain and you're feeling feelings and you're thinking thoughts, you get to expand. And when you're welcoming of differences, you are that which is a person who knows that everyone comes from a different walk. And that's why for the 5D mystic community and spiritual community, I call it that way, but they're all able to know we don't cut cords, there's no energy vampires, there are no dark auras, there's no need for any kind of stories like that, because they're dehumanizing and they're demonizing people who need help. And also they're perceiving the energetic sphere, because I've heard their descriptions in ways that are completely explainable, because Patrick McNamara, a neuroscientist, explains exactly how decentralizing in the self works and how religion has a role in it. And he explains how a bad trip goes. And in fact, that's why we got a human being and more out there. But this one in particular, as they're spreading rumors about yoga bringing demons out of them, because they didn't think to go and get themselves checked into a therapist when they had their experience. And I don't think they know Peter Levine and his sharing with us how muscles, bones, and tissues store trauma. So ascension energies I have personally as a mystic seen every year, those who expand are those who are taking good care of themselves. They love themselves first. They love others. Their oversoul expands. They don't have tragedy with their twin flame. They will have empowered feminine, empowered masculine lessons. And they learn, in fact, how to be more spiritual. And so to be lovers of all, to be able to completely know that God knows everything, and Akash and Source. So cosmic karmic balancing. And before I forget to read to you the lovely quote from Sadhguru for today: the feminine is a powerful dimension of life. Without feminine energy or Shakti, there would be nothing in existence. Now, the feminine isn't a woman. It is, I always like to tell you, it's your embodied brain. So when you are strong, words, teaching, stories are not what make you have faith and that communion. It's an empowered feminine has an energetic imprint. And so with clairs or spiritual gifts, or if you want to look the sciences plane, they talk to you about consciousness, like that lovely physicist Thomas Campbell. So all the stories of spirituality, when you bring them together, they don't disprove what science is proving. Science is proving what spirituality spoke of. The people who want it to work with the words the way that they have their boxes are the left brainers, because they need boxes. When you have a left and a right, which is why we're expanding our 8th and 9th chakra at this time, we're open-ended and we have no goal. And so we with joy, develop strength, courage, curiosity. This is the resilience as you are anchored and anchoring in your ventral vagal state. And that's where we support those who are still working with their cracks, as they fill in the cracks with gold, because they're making choices for their future, for a lot of things. But also, as this rabbi talks about the feminine, and he mentions there's infinite potential of life for the masculine, but nothing comes of that until the masculine is captured, contained, given limitations, and nurtured. And he says the feminine element is what limits and defines. Now, he talks about the feminine as a woman, although he's trying not to. And I'm going to let you know that it isn't gender specific. You'll know if you are mystic spiritual, if you are a dominant feminine element or masculine. But at the end of the day, you have both. So you're going to be a whole person, if you will, with a higher self, because again, your body is the feminine anyway, so you don't have to believe in the spiritual stuff. But for spiritual, you're going to be a higher and enlightened spiritual self when you have both your divine and divine feminine masculine here. As for what you've heard of the twin flame stuff, yeah, that's for the people who are not moving into their whole grown-up version self. So you know how when you meet teenagers, they are going to have a whole black and white thinking, I remember. Okay, so let me just share something before we move forward. Here is where I actually am going to post on YouTube a lovely link to an article. I was interviewed on the topic of why self-care. And it's what do I do for self-care and how it has impacted my effectiveness. So if you're curious to find out my personal experience, or I might read some of it to you, but at the end of the day, what I can tell you, it's definitely being able to be securely attached, self-led, work with my personal patterns, temperament. All my child parts are great. When they come up, my body always surprises me, like it did with the anger stuff, even though I wasn't surprised. I was just not expecting it, because I know how to say, no, I don't want to do it. But that's with my loved ones. Send me out into the forest by myself. I'm pretty sure that way that I did is how I probably would work that way. So when it comes to self-care, so like Patrick Tiahan, this lovely trauma therapist, points out, it would be really cool if you got healed your trauma. So we love all people, but the people who are healing are the ones we're going to all hang out with, because the ones who don't heal, they don't like ventral energy. They think our happiness vibes are pretend, and then some get really irritated by it. It's explainable by science. It's called, they have attachment wounds and they flare up. Bethany Brand and Ruth Lanus explained it to me. When I found out, I was like, okay, I need to make sure to not look people straight in the eye. And when I talk to those who I notice are compartmentalizing, they confirm it. So I always do share with people that if I'm not looking at you, it's because of information that I have about how attachment wounds flare up, and I don't want to have anything flare up because I have no attachment wounds. I have emotions, and so that's where my child parts, though I don't shit on them. Okay, so the effectiveness of when you have self-care, it's called integration of brain, by the way. So it's emotional, mental intelligence development on a go, and it's always fun. So the ascension energies we had, I still have stuff happening right now. But I wanted to share a very simple story before I let you go. And that's when I was a teenager, because I was 11 to 14 when I found out exactly how stupid all teenagers were. I said, you're stupid too, but it's okay. And then I chose my first allo parenting, because as an adolescent, 11 to 25, we choose our next allo parenting group. So I got my teenage boyfriend, I got my BFFF, and I got, we got our people that we go out with. So that's from 15 to about 18. 19 is when finally he's like, okay, I don't know if I want to be with you anymore. So that was where, until that moment though, we would always talk, and he definitely already knew the word soulmate. I didn't know about twin flames yet, but I knew about the death do part, sickness and health, better for worse. Okay, so here's another tidbit that I had given you on trying to share with you, was late HP show, I think, the jealousy thing. Okay, so I'm not a jealous person. In fact, actually, for our polyamory community, the ones who are polysecure, they're not jealous or masochists. For those of you who don't know polyamory, you don't have to. Just knowing that love is a person who can love themselves first so they can love you too. That means that they are not insecure. So while there are those who will say, culturally speaking, I respect differences, but I'm saying Maria, not a jealous person. And as for the polyamory, I'm going to give you my 2 cents. You don't love if you say you're not poly enough. You also don't love if you give 1, 2, 3s. Because are you putting a price or a tag or an amount? That's dehumanizing and objectifying a person, and that's actually, no. That's not, it's a soul and a person, and there's no price. That's why with the pavement, when there's cracks, anyone who will have cracks, we will fill those cracks with them, and that's because they will become luminous just as much as us when they can love themselves first. And so I honor those who are healing from all that attachment wound stuff. So of course we're going to put gold, we're going to help them get up that ladder, whatever maladaptive patterns, whatever dysfunctional patterns, they're going to be stronger than it, because they're going to have people that love them and don't use shame, blame, fault, revenge, small manners. Okay, so when you know how forgiveness works, the humble, the true way, none of us play God, divinity, source, Akash. We are in communion with that which is wisdom. And in fact, wisdom of the heart is consistently, I see a heart in another person, always. And if it's a broken heart, I'm not going to break it more. I don't have to. Healthy self-worth people don't play any of that which is a petty, sick. No. People are hooked on their drama. It's a sick, petty, envious, jealous game, which I can tell you my personal subjective opinion, it irritates the fuck out of me. The scientists, they tell me, calm down, they didn't choose it, remember. Yes, but they're sure as heck choosing to follow those morons around and continue to do shit, and then God's like, okay, come on, take a step back. I'm taking a step back, and then I got lovely Jesus, as he points out. Okay, so we are all sinners, right? Nobody casts a stone, so you get to keep being reminded by science and spirituality how to be humble if you are in communion with that which is, and you're not it. If you ever do the I am it, and you begin to forget who you are, you're beginning to point fingers. I learned all about not doing that as a teenager. You're bad, you do drugs. You're bad, you do that. You're bad. That's all the way till I was about probably 17. I forget when it was. Like, so sorry. By the time I was 20, I was like, hey, God, so listen, cowards, no Lucifer. I'm 45. Science proves no Lucifer. So with that, patience is something that we all learn. And then we also learn that emotionally immature people will be one of two. The ones who will get out of being immature, and they will join us here, like-hearted people. And that's once they're ready to forgive, because we're all Smurfs and Care Bears, and we're just all over this stuff. Like, there's Gargamel, let's go. Or they will be the ones who I have called emotionally and mentally and all of insecure, unhealthy, sick, and that's it. And they're I don't have a judgment. They're not good or bad. As long as they follow law, they're doing fine. They're unhealthy, and they're a bad example for teenagers. But they also are creating movies that people want to watch, and then there's also different soul age groups. So let me leave all that again to the side. They're not cool. They're the uncool. By the time I'm 14, I'm like, you know what? The grown-ups were right. You're all uncool. So here's how a teenage Maria knew already what self-care meant. There's a guy before my teenage boyfriend that I was flirting with, and I was getting all excited because I got some new heels. He would always say, we're not going to be a couple because I'm tall, you're short, it looks bad. Superficial. Yeah, so people who are superficial, I don't have anything interesting to say about them except for they're very superficial. Not funny at all. But let me leave that alone and finish up with the story. So as I'm walking in, I'm all excited. He looks at me, he's like, don't think with those shoes we can be a couple because you're still short. And as soon as he said that, so you're already downloading when you're in communion with God. I didn't know that. I didn't look into it, but spiritual gifts, clairs, consciousness. So immediately higher self as well, by the way, which is why higher self is connected to all that is and more. But if you don't want to use any of the words, you just use myself. If you're a person who doesn't believe, I respect that because I believe everyone is one spiritual, but you don't have to say it those ways. You could just say, no, Maria, I just have a self and I have words. I'll understand it. Because, by the way, I left you hanging with something about mediumship channeling. If you listen to the late HP show, what I was trying to tell you, the example, apple, pear, banana. Did you see them in your mind's eye a little bit? Or even if you didn't see them, now they're present. So for a 5D mystic in the Enlightenment Soul Age group, who's a spiritual one, that's how it works. So that's why Buddha comes in, Jesus comes in, Archangel Michael, you name it, the galactic beings, they're all here. They just tap me on the shoulder. Knock 3 times on the ceiling if you want this. That I know you're not coming in right now, but they did come near me, the galactic beings. They're like, tell them it's going to be a fun ride when we come. Oh, shit. Okay, so when they arrive, it will be fun. They will be welcomed by those of us who are here right now. Oh my God, I can't wait. I hope to meet them soon. Oh, no, not that soon. Okay, well, anyways, leave me alone, back to us. So that's how easy it is for us to be connected. But that's because, again, I've been practicing an integrated brain and being in Maria's healthiness since I was a kid. That's why you're bad. I'm so sorry. So, okay, back to the download. Download was, this is not love, but I'm flirting or I'm having a good time, and there you go. And then the teenage boyfriend. So the teenage boyfriend, what I was trying to get to is the death do you part, sickness and health, all that. But you be you and I be me. I'm not jealous, and you are doing whatever you're doing. So as he took it to become a pattern. His cheating. The ones who are regulars know it. But the first time it was, okay, look, we talked about it. We cleared it up. I'm not going to be like our friends who check each other's phones, who're going to come checking in on you, tell you what time to go home. That's not, no. Nothing's changed. I understand culturally speaking for you, jealousy means I love you. I love you. I'm not insecure. Jealousy means I would be insecure. I'm not an insecure person. So I told him nothing's changed. If you're trying to make me jealous, this isn't like, and I'm trying to say I love you and this is how I do it. I don't do it your way. So, and that's where by the third time I'm like, okay, this is getting ridiculous. The third time was with my BFFF. So I'm just like, what do you want to do? I mean, it's not like as we got older. So people are like, oh, that's wrong. We're adolescents. That's not wrong. It's normal to be immature and insecure. That is actually to be expected. So anybody who is expecting adolescents to be emotionally mature has a very unclear knowledge of 0-8 are codependent. Then by the time they're 11, they're choosing their next alloparenting group. If they got bad attachment, we got another bunch of people who are going to be, and in fact, I've spotted a bunch of them as I was a teenager. And in the meantime, I kept standing up for me and I kept saying, okay, where are we? So speaking without shaming, blaming, faulting, revenging. So people who instead were down the path of that which then they grew up to be their moronic, basically, selves, that's how I'm going to tell you grown up is, they don't think it's cool to take care of themselves. They make fun of me for not doing drugs as a 45-year-old woman. And I'm thinking, sure, whatever. I drink moderately and I want to eat healthy and I am still sloppy with my physical exercises, but I'm going to do them right. And I still know what love is, which is why there's no tragedy with twin flames, because love means that you will lift me up higher. And if I'm down, you're going to lift me up. But we're going to be responsible for our nervous system. So it's not that I lift you up and you keep falling, lift you up and you keep falling. No, by the third time, okay, hold on a minute. I keep lifting you up. But if you fall back down and then I'm talking to you about it and you don't. So it's very straightforward when you meet cool people and when you meet the ones who are not cool. And it's very easy to also recalibrate that which is it's not unhealthy for those of us who are securely attached, is we don't lose sense of self, we don't lose self-esteem, we don't lose confidence. So people who think that you get chipped away at, for example, there's this one experience where I remember I've talked about it on the podcast a couple of times, this was way later, where I said, oh, it was kind of like losing something. And that's why the lovely smart therapists, they always like, so you change things up. They like to chime in every now and then. That's how Maria brings it all in, because I'm aware of all the data. So I know that they can interpret it differently, and that's why I like to share it with you, because I know that you might have different interpretations of it too. For Maria, it's I have lack of knowledge at one moment in time. I gain knowledge the next moment of time. I haven't changed my mind. I learned something that informed me, so I can actually take a look at that and know how to tell you of it in a perspective that is now, and that's why they'll say changed. No, it's to me not changed. I'm now educated. I'm empowered with it. There's two different ways of approaching my life, okay? So when people own their life and they're learning new things, and that's why the sense of self doesn't change, it's I'm learning things. If I'm ignorant back then, I didn't know it. That means I did not know it. So you wanting to, and that's, again, so it's hearts that expand don't change. They look back and say, I've been gifted a lot of experiences. I keep learning and I keep maturing and I keep expanding, and then I keep knowing why God is perfect, by the way, and Akash and source, and how there's nothing that has actually happened out of glitch. So for my mystic journey, the only most annoying thing are the panic attacks, other than that. And that can be explained with science too if I wanted to use it. The freeze response, it's a bunch of charges, and I got a bunch of things happen before I was born. The umbilical cord on my throat, C-section, put in an incubator, all of that, and the incubator particularly, they took me away from my twin. I had a body that was warm, and then all of a sudden I'm in a dark room with nothing. And your body, your nervous system doesn't regulate in the absence of a regulating. It doesn't the woman's bosom. I need a regulating nervous system, because if I got an anxious nervous system, I'm taking in all the anxious. I'm a little sponge, and my nervous system doesn't know how to self-regulate appropriately. So when people want to keep talking about monsters, they're very not nice. And when they want to use words, shadow work, and all this other stuff, and they're dressing it all up, I'm like, stop. Own your child parts and honor them already. Instead of making up stories as you give each other superhero and supervillain capes, and then you don't do any of the growing up and being a beautiful functional child adult. So we get to meet half of them. But back to the teenage boyfriend. So by the end of our story, I was not unimpressed. I was, what's the word? A month in, I'm like, the grown-ups were wrong. They said that the first love is the most amazing of them all. I love him the same as I did yesterday, except for we've grown different and he wants different things. And obviously we weren't matching up on the whole jealousy front. And in fact, he got what he wanted. He also didn't want somebody that would just let him roam free. I'm pretty sure that some people, they don't want to choose how to live life. And that's something that when I think about it, so people will say, you let him get away. I said, what, my dog? He wasn't my dog. That's what they said. And then I was like, I'm not going to criticize him. I'm just going to say that I'm happy, or I got better suitors. But that through part, sickness and health, better for worse, that means to support each other. But that doesn't mean you're going to drag me down. It means I'm going to drag you up. You're going to drag me up. And it means your common sense. So it's cool self-care. It's cool because it's effective, and science and spirituality come together proving Kingdom of God within everyone, enlightenment seed, thank you Sadhguru, Kingdom of God Jesus. And so if you're new here, I like to talk to the community. I don't organize any of the stuff, and I bring in stories from other stuff. And when I think of twin flame and twin flames and soulmates and my oversoul, this is entirely perfection. And I still have the honor to also tell you that the only person I got to complain and get irritated with, God knows all about it. And then I say, okay, so, thanks God for keeping me away, because actually, yeah, this is the one thing that when you find out about those cracked foundations, it's really nice to see when people are filling it in with gold. And that's because that's what every child deserves, is to be able to be their self. And then to look, wow, look at this. And gold is really strong, right? And so that's the people who are going to ascend are all people who know that there's no demons out there in the world, that we have people who need help, and that we can continue to ensure that Christ consciousness makes its way, because Dharma's here, space weather's here, and because also the luminous warriors are smart, not buffoons. Because they're using a prefrontal. They live at the highest level of spirituality. Their bodies are connected, and they know that all of our brothers and sisters are love, and that you will have always cosmic karmic balancing. And so for the teenage boyfriend, for example, there was a moment where with archangels, I got to clear out some stuff that I knew was in our field. I was happy to know that it worked, and I was sad to see every bit of the person that they could have become basically not become it, but as their someone close to them said, don't you think maybe they're happy? I think that they are the shadow of another individual because they because they never grew to believe in themselves, like my facade friend, who also is sure, is he happy? Well, I mean, from what I know his desires were and his dreams. Okay, so people who don't take self-care seriously, they don't become their self because they don't notice that they have 16-year-old with insecurities, and some shit went down and they ignore the small and big signs, and then they continue to just grow up to become buffoons, which is why it's unimpressive. But as a child of God who always knows, he chimes in, Maria, don't judge your brothers and sisters, the suffering ones, a waste of your fucking time. So that's why Buddha makes fun of me, and Jesus smiles when I'm reminding you to forgive, but he looks at me seriously when I'm like, I'm irritated by them all. And so he's just reminding me, okay, come on, you know what the good thing is to do. You don't. So God doesn't intervene in any person's life. Sadhguru, I forget where the quote is, but that was something that I was like, yeah, I learned about that. And that's because we get to have free will, and then the laws keep us safe. So people who would want laws to be only with the spiritual stuff, they're the same ones who don't understand that the laws actually, I think I forget what it's called, but it like has the basic human rights like all over it. So it's not against that which is supporting societies. The only ones who don't like it are the ones who want their books to win, which is basically people who are stuck in their own. So that's why they're ostriches with heads in the sand, cognitive dissonance, structurally dissociated, bunch of groups like the flat earthers, and hey, I mean, they're having fun so as long as they're following the law. But at the end of the day, what I was trying to get to is that we don't lose out, and we don't lose any part of us. We will feel sad for things that didn't work out, but that's something normal, because you all can have different expectations and different thoughts of what can take place in any of the relationships. But we don't cut cords, and we don't stop loving people. That's the other part. Yeah, so love is a consistency. Like I learned with the lovely one, Eric Fromm, who basically confirmed what I had felt my entire life. It's like, I don't love him less or her less. I love them the same. I thought we would stay friends. When they said no, I thought, what? And then finally we were able to become friends again. And this was one of my best gifts ever, was this human being when she finally acknowledged that we were soul sisters. I was like, that's what we are. We are connected. And I wanted to cry, because in that moment there was another thing that was happening, and then I got to double cry eventually, and triple cry, and this is all in good ways. And I got to say, wow, I knew it. I'm going to let all the people who think sacrifice is something you have to go through. Nope, no sacrifice. No ego death, no dark night of soul. None of that excruciating shit that they keep talking to you about. I mean, they're just dressing up what basically is called developing strength, courage, curiosity by being open-ended inquiry in the inner growth mindset, the way Maria is going to present it to you. Because, hey, what's up? 1-year-old, you good? Great. Are you done being, exaggerated here? We got shit to do. So empowered feminines, we got shit to do, you see? And that's why the masculine, you don't get in the way. Hey, what stop. So the higher self consistently leads you to more integration of the brain. And you don't lose any part of you. But when you get sad, it's because I lacked knowledge. I lacked the attachment trauma education. Once I did, I said, okay, this is all good, because now I can know exactly when I'm dealing with an emotionally and mentally intelligent, developing human being, and when I'm with the other ones. They're not for me to do anything about. As I can't keep lifting you up, and I can't put gold in the cracks because you keep on pushing me away whenever I'm trying to say, so what's that crack about? You want to talk about it? How about you? So when people are not stronger than their dysfunctional patterns, and when they choose to do shame, blame, fault, revenge, they follow fancy human beings in suits and bullshitters, basically. And then they become basically donkeys from, yeah, that's a sad story for another time. Because, yes, it's really not fun to watch people that you love, and you'll still love them because, you know, again, till death you part, sickness and health. It's not nice to be not nice to the ones who suffer life. They really just want a hug, and or not, but we will hug them anyways if they let us. And so everyone's a miracle and everyone's magic, unless they don't want to be magic. They are still a miracle, and they have that free will to choose. But again, we don't make anybody choose that which they don't want, because it's their journey to get back home to themselves. And you can't make someone love themselves first, which is really sad. But you can try to say, hey, I'll fill those cracks with you if you want. I'll come fill more. I'll climb the ladder. I'll use my hands. Hey, you know what? We can get a hot pot thingy, whatever. So that's how we support people. As we all know, we can get sloppy, and that's how it works. That's how a herd works. Like Sid tells Manny and Diego, and he tells Sid, come on, Diego made a mistake, but we're not going to kick him out of the herd. We need him, 1, and 2, come on, Manny, you're not perfect. Sid knows what it means to not be perfect. So at the end of the day, we're all imperfect and flawed. Thanks for stopping by. Take care of yourselves, and remember, we can't make those who don't want to. But we can hope that all of the laws have good therapists in the prisons, and then for the ones who are charming, well, again, that's a whole other story. I'm going to leave you now. Have a good one.